Good, how are you? Good, we're live. That's it. I can make that meeting. Okay, great. Perfect. Good evening. I would like to call the April 15th, 2024 New Albany Plain Local Board of Education meeting to order. Ms. Jenkins, please call the roll.
Mr. Wilson.
Yes.
Mr. McClellan.
Yes.
Ms. Fuller.
Yep.
Vice President Newmoff is absent, but he's on his way. President Kalinowski.
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Superintendent Sawyers, are there any additions or corrections to tonight's agenda?
There is a correction for amendment to amend the agenda in section number 4 to include communications to the board for superintendent's update, please.
Superintendent? Okay. Next is an opportunity for public participation.
We have to
approve it.
Oh, sorry.
motions.
May I have a motion and a second to approve tonight's agenda with that amendment to communications to the board?
So moved.
Second. Mr. McClellan and Ms. Fuller. Ms. Jenkins, please call the roll.
Mr. McClellan.
Yes.
Ms. Fuller. Yes. Mr. Wilson.
Yes.
President Kalinowski.
Yes, and the motion carries. And with no public participants this evening, we will now move to communications to the board, beginning with a district action plan from the Citizen Advisory Committee on Student Belonging. Superintendent Sawyers.
President Kalinowski, members of the Board of Education, it's my pleasure to welcome Mrs. Lofton, the Assistant Superintendent, to the podium. She's going to, as soon as I share screen, walk you through the update related to the action plan for the recommendations that were provided by Citizens Advisory.
Good evening, President Kalinowski, members of the Board of Education, Superintendent Sawyers, Ms. Jenkins. The direction and discussion from the board in March was a request that the superintendent create or work with us, his administrative team, to create an action plan to implement the recommendations as described by the committee in the document that I just shared previously. And we did also discuss that there was a lot incorporated in these recommendations and that we needed to consider timelines. And so we have also tried to do that as part of our draft proposal. So Superintendent Sawyers, if you would advance the slide. The first recommendation was to find the root causes of why students feel they don't have a strong sense of belonging. And the process we are proposing includes engaging a work group of administrators in June to begin the analysis process. And that would include building administrators, communications staff, athletic staff, deans, and myself. And we would then in the fall, beginning probably in September, convene a series of focus groups so that we could get input from a broader group of staff members in addition to the administrator input. So we would have big facilitators, students, classified staff, school counselors, mental health specialists, and nurses, and that list may grow based upon our conversations. And then the goal would be for the analysis after getting that focus group input to be completed by December 1st so that we could begin to implement some of the ideas that we learn as early as the second semester of next school year.
Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
So on this one, we would not involve students yet.
President Kalinowski, they would be one of the focus groups in the fall.
Okay.
So it would be big facilitators, students, classified staff, school counselors, mental health specialists, and nurses.
Okay.
On the initial idea would be to have that group, but again, we would meet with administrators, deans, athletic staff, and perhaps add to that additional groups.
Thank you.
The second recommendation is to find and develop and implement intentional programs to help students engage with students more consistently. And the first suggestion was to conduct an inventory, or the first recommendation, my apologies, to conduct an inventory of current programs related to student belonging in each building so that we could identify gaps. And the plan or proposal here is that we would compile what we've already documented through the Wellbeing Initiative and the BIC framework, because both of those programs have been run for several years through John Hood and Diane Herman, and they have wonderful records of the different programs and inventories already in place for each separate discrete program. They can work to compile those, and then we would share those documents with principals who could add to them if there's anything that's not included that's happening in their buildings that is a program that involves belonging, student belonging. And then we would have a full inventory to review at each building and look for gaps. The idea was the committee felt they couldn't make a lot of suggestions until they knew until we really could identify everything that's going on in every building. And then are there gaps that students have identified in the root cause analysis, or that we can see just from looking at the inventory, this is a gap, this grade level is a gap, or this area of belonging is a gap. That would be our first step for recommendation 2. Next slide. Another suggestion was, of course, to use the information from the root cause analysis to determine other areas to explore, and I already included that in our first plan for completing the root cause analysis, and then to leverage existing opportunities, including one of the ideas that was raised was the house system, which is intended to create a sense of a strong culture around a school's, competitive games and things that engage students in activities around school spirit. Ironically, superintendent and I have been working with Huntington Bank representatives and the New Albany Community Foundation since November of this school year to engage with the Ron Clark Academy in Atlanta, Georgia. The Huntington Bank has sponsored several partnerships and several district opportunities around the country, really, to go see the Ron Clark Academy, experience it. It's a very unique place. But what will happen there when you go to the Ron Clark Academy, you definitely see the full experience of the house system in about as well implemented as I can imagine it being. So ironically, one of the things that's happening is Huntington Bank and the New Albany Community Foundation are sponsoring 14 of our teachers to attend the Ron Clark experience this July, separate from this committee's recommendations. They're going to attend the experience for 2 days in July, along with our building principals. And we decided to leverage that opportunity. So when they return, we will debrief with those teams, and their building principals will debrief with them, and can then have, again, a very immersive experience in a fully implemented house system. And this is in a middle school. So we would like to get recommendations from each building then as to what they think would be components of the house system. Probably not. I'm not sure any building will decide to fully implement it. It's quite an undertaking. But what components they think fit best would be a benefit and have an impact in their schools, and a timeline for implementing those in each building. And there were 3 more kind of somewhat specific suggestions from the committee, recommendations for engaging students with students. And that was to, if you recall, take groups of students who are on buses together for one reason or another, whether it's the neighborhood bus, a field trip bus, athletic buses, and try to have them engaging with one another outside of the bus setting so that they could learn to interact in different ways, maybe carry on friendships that are established on the buses on field trips into the school setting. The second one was establishing a peer mentoring program within buildings. And the third one was to have students involved in leadership in any student belonging initiatives as we continue to add to our portfolio of student belonging initiatives. These three items as a team, when the superintendent and I were looking at this with cabinet, we felt as though if we're doing the root cause analysis, we're doing the building inventories, program inventories, we really wanted to wait to propose. Again, we're doing a lot, trying to put a lot together. It's coming up, we're in April already, coming up on the end of the school year. Wait to see where those pieces fall out before we decide how and when these could happen. In addition, of course, as opportunities arise, the principals are aware that these are on the list of recommendations. May have already been thinking about things, opportunities for student leadership in particular. If there's a new program that's going to start up, they could already take that on, but we would not make that a formal part of our timeline just yet. President Kalinowski, if there are questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Do we do any peer mentoring now?
President Kalinowski, I do not believe we have anything formal in terms of a peer mentoring program, but I have all of my colleagues sitting to my right. So if anyone wants to correct me. Not at the moment, no.
It's only informal opportunity.
With the 2 days, is this something that the Ron Clark Academy offers as part of its, teaching people about their concept?
President Kalinowski, Mr. Wilson, the Ron Clark Academy, what we have learned since November of last year, it's a charter school in Atlanta, and it's one of the ways that they sustain it themselves is by being a model teaching school. And it's just one school. And Ron Clark, of course, is from the movie, the Ron Clark story, taught in Harlem, and started the school with another teacher who was a teacher of the year also nationally. And they wanted to show teachers from all around the world how they thought teaching and learning could look and how it could be engaging and inspiring and look different than a traditional classroom. And they certainly do that. So this 2-day experience, anyone can purchase their 2-day experience and go visit for those 2 days and be really immersed. I mean, you sit right in classrooms and watch teachers. Some of them are full auditorium style. Ron Clark's classroom is a full auditorium, and others are small rooms like this where the teacher and students are in the middle and there are a few chairs on each side.
Is there a component of the house system that is sort of expressly directed at increasing the sense of belonging?
Mr. Wilson, it's more about it's a cultural initiative. It's an overall culture building. So inherent in that is a sense of team, because you put students into houses or they select into houses, depending on how you design it. And so it's kind of that family sense where maybe if you take the high school, for example, where we had conversations on our committee that you move from class to class and you have different people in every class and you don't see your friends until you leave school for the day or something. In the house system, you would see, if fully implemented again, you would see each other at least regularly, the members of your house and your house deans, your house teachers on a regular basis, and they would be your family, so to speak.
Are there any other questions? Thank you.
Next, I'd like to welcome Mr. Scott Emery, Director of Elementary Education, to provide an update to the Board of Education and our community regarding House Bill 33 and the implementation of the Science of Reading update. Mr. Emery.
President Kalinowski, Vice President Newmoff, and members of the board, thank you for allowing me time to provide an update about House Bill 33 and how our district is addressing its requirements. House Bill 33, Ohio's budget bill, passed last summer and included several provisions that impact our English language arts programming in order to be in alignment with Ohio's transition to the science of reading. The science of reading can be broadly defined as revisiting research on the cognitive processes of how children learn to read and implementing teaching practices that use systemic explicit instruction consistent with that research. The national discussion about the science of reading helped lead to passage of Ohio's dyslexia law in 2021. House Bill 33 expanded the scope of the dyslexia law to impact more students and more grade levels. The first significant impact of House Bill 33 is that it requires that all preschool to 12th grade teachers and administrators participate in science of reading professional development. These online courses developed by the state range from 7 to 22 hours based on job assignment. House Bill 33 allocated funds to provide $1,200 stipends for all preschool to 5th grade teachers and English teachers in grades 6 to 12 across the state. In addition, all preschool to 12th grade intervention specialists, English language learner teachers, and literacy coaches are eligible for the full $1,200 stipend. All other teachers in Ohio in grades 6 to 12 who do not directly teach English language arts are eligible to receive a reduced $400 stipend. To help New Albany teachers prepare for these courses, Assistant Superintendent Lofton notified all of our teachers earlier this month of this statewide requirement. She provided a listing of documents to help staff determine which course was aligned with their teaching assignment, as well as directions to set up an online account to access the professional development modules. While the state deadline to complete the modules is June 30th, 2025, Treasurer Jenkins created earlier opportunities for New Albany teachers to complete Ohio's online science of reading courses and apply for the state stipend. We believe Treasurer Jenkins' efforts to compensate staff earlier than the summer of 2025 will serve as a positive incentive for teachers to complete the course prior to next school year. In addition to the professional development requirements, House Bill 33 requires districts to choose English language arts materials from a state-approved program list. Beginning with the 25-26 school year, the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce expects all Ohio school districts to be using a state-approved ELA core curriculum in grades preschool to 5 and state-approved reading intervention materials in grades preschool to 12. With the leadership of District Structured Literacy Coordinator Tara Boga, we have started evaluating programs on the state's approved preschool to 5th grade list. Early Learning Center Principal Lavero, Primary Principal Smith, and Intermediate Principal Ballinger meet with Coordinator Boga weekly to review and discuss programs. Our elementary ELA teacher leaders, which we refer to as literacy coaches, also attend these weekly meetings. In addition to meeting with vendors, our team has conducted site visits to Ohio schools who are already using Ohio's approved programs. The evaluation of programs will continue into the summer and into next school year. Our plan is to bring a program to the board next school year for your adoption to use with students beginning in August of 2025. As outlined in board policy and administrative guidelines, teachers and parents will be heavily involved in the process of selecting a recommended program for your approval. In addition to funding the statewide teacher stipends, House Bill 33 allocated $64 million to support districts in purchasing materials that align with the science of reading. Mrs. Jenkins received notice last week of our allotment to use toward core comprehensive and intervention materials. Thank you for allowing me time to update you on House Bill 33 and its impact on the New Albany Plain Local School District. I look forward to a future presentation where I can share more in depth about the science of reading and our recommendations for an English language arts program that will best meet the needs of New Albany students. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good question.
You may have mentioned this. I apologize if it went over my head. The $1,200 stipend,
Yes.
great. What are the parameters around what it can be used for?
The $1,200 stipend upon completion of either,
So it's whatever.
the $1,200 stipend is just considered to be compensation for the teacher from the state of Ohio for completing the required online course.
So, but it's a set course. It's a state course. Every teacher takes the same course. It's not a. Okay.
Exactly right. There are some alternative options for teachers that have done their own coursework that can exempt them from doing the state's course.
Okay.
But if they're exempted from doing the state's course, they cannot apply for a state stipend. So they will not receive any financial incentive for completing that course.
Okay. And then have we seen or do we know what's in the course?
We've had 3 teachers already complete the course, since Mrs. Lofton shared information with them just 2 weeks ago.
Great.
And, so according to one teacher this morning, one of our team leaders in 3rd grade, she said she thought it was on point and accessible, and said, she gained knowledge from the course.
Good, okay, great.
Thank you.
Next is a superintendent update, Superintendent Sawyers.
Thank you, President Kalinowski. I have a couple things for the board this evening. The first is, we've been contacted by the city. We're in the process of conversations in relationship to a new turn lane that's coming to 605 from Cardulas to Chatham Green. So it'll be installed during the summertime. We're waiting on egress, legal paperwork to come from the city. So I'll bring it forward to the Board of Education, most likely at the next board meeting. I'll have the site layout, the plans. There is egress to the district property, so we'll have to approve them to come onto district property for the addition of the turn lane that's happening, to basically create additional queue space on 605 from Cardulas to Chatham Green, try to help with traffic congestion that's occurring. So it's in the ARB process right now. I believe it'll come out, it'll be finalized. We'll get the final version of the legal paperwork that'll be necessary for board resolution for approval, most likely at the end of the month. Next, we received preliminary notifications. I just want to make sure this is on the board's radar, that there is a new apartment complex coming to Hamilton Road. So a developer is working with the city of Columbus to install 360 plus or minus apartments into a commercial green space that will have to be rezoned by the city of Columbus. So if you know where the easiest way for wayfinding, if you know where Home Depot is, across the street from Home Depot, there's a Panda Express. There is a large green field with a lake behind it. That large green field is the proposed location of the new apartment complex, which is 100% New Albany Plain local schools. So the 360 plus or minus units will be part of our school district. We do not have typology, any information, price points, or anything. Just received initial notification that they're going through the process with the city of Columbus for zoning purposes to get approval to construct an apartment complex that will be 100% our school district. I will provide additional information as we receive it as this process unfolds. Lastly, this evening, I want to update you on information that we've received from our architects. So we've been working readily with the architectural firm to go through the process to complete the facilities master study within our school district. So our last meeting was extremely productive and informative. So as such, I have some information I want to share with the board and our community this evening to try to keep everyone informed about what we presently know. So the board will recall we contracted with Shore Architects Incorporated, which included Community Design Alliance and Harrison Planning Group, to conduct master facility studies on our school campus, both the school building for academic purposes and all athletic related fields. So the athletic piece has not started yet. I'll talk a little bit about that tonight, but I don't have anything to share related to anything as outcome related to athletics. That work is just beginning next week and will be a TBD. However, based upon the regular meetings we've had with Shore, Community Design, and Harrison Planning Group, they have completed the scheduled site visits to all of our school buildings during spring recess. They have confirmed the map configurations that were used by Cooperative Strategies to evaluate capacity studies in all school buildings, specifically. So they took all of the work we spent 9 months doing within the school district, specifically with Cooperative Strategies on our capacity study work, and then translated that into confirmation by Shore Architects that the information was accurate, and they concurred with the findings that were presented by Cooperative Strategies. Based upon those studies, I've linked them, so I put in the presentation that they did the analysis of the enrollment projection report as well as the capacity study, and watched Karen's presentation from January 22nd. So when this gets posted to the website as part of the board information, anyone in our community that would like to go back and find, if they have not already looked at, the enrollment projection report or the capacity study or Karen's presentation from Cooperative Strategies, I put in the hyperlinks to the presentation. So that's part of this. And again, they did concur with all of the findings that were presented by Cooperative Strategies, and actually the architectural firms are very complimentary, both to the school district, the NACO, and the city, for conducting this work because it was actually very thorough and actually sped up the process to get to an end result for them on some preliminary findings, which we were very grateful to have. This is the capacity study analysis that was completed by Cooperative Strategies. I'm just refreshing the board's memory that you will recall that based upon the analysis that was done by Cooperative Strategies and publicly reported in January of 2024, our elementary level buildings are exceeding recommended capacities for ideal utilization. When you add what Karen had done for enrollment projections and years 1 through 5 versus year through 10, you can see that ultimately all the buildings get to a point where they exceed ideal utilization, but the particular overcrowding issue with enrollment growth within the school district will be dominantly at the elementary level. There's some tweaks that can be made at the middle school and high school that will enable us to continue to serve students to best meet their academic and developmental needs, but it won't require the same solutions that are presented for the elementary level in our preliminary conversations with the architects to date. So the findings that Karen had forecasted have been confirmed, and Shore Architects, CDA, and Harrison Planning Group are in concurrence. So based upon our meeting last Thursday, this is the first preliminary information I've seen and as a potential solution. So I want to stress that no decisions have been made. This is preliminary information that's been presented to us to start conversations with teaching faculty and staff to talk about academic, pedagogical, and instructional needs of students to best meet their academic developmental needs. So this will springboard conversations internally within the school district with teachers through our survey process that's about to begin next week, or actually, excuse me, later this week, and then listening sessions that'll be scheduled in May. So the preliminary information basically supports that based upon current building usage and the enrollment growth that's projected, changes will be required to the school campus. We likely will need an additional 8 classrooms and a cafeteria space to be constructed at the Early Learning Center for increased student enrollment needs. Fortunately, the expansion was scoped when the ELC was built, formerly the K1 building, and can mechanically support such an addition based upon the evaluation by the structural engineers. So that addition would be adjacent on the preliminary things that I've seen that we reviewed. The original scope had the 8 additional classrooms that were set aside for future need when the original building was constructed, adjacent to the playground side of the building. So there is room next to the playground to actually construct 8 additional classrooms, a 2-floor, 4 on the first floor, 4 on the second floor, and a cafeteria space adjacent to it near the gymnasium. So that was part of the original building design that Kevin Harrison was actually involved in. And he went back and found all of that information and did confirm with the structural engineers that the mechanicals that are currently at the ELC will support that work. Secondly, they believe it will be likely, based upon our current capacity utilization at the elementary level and the forecasted growth in student enrollment, that we will need to build a new elementary school to house at least 2 grade levels of 1,000 students. That's over the course of the next 10 years with the enrollment growth that's projected within the school district on our school campus. They would also recommend that when the site plan and the mechanical systems are basically designed specifically for that new building, that it should include the ability to expand the building in the future if enrollment growth would be necessary. So the site that would be selected and the ability to install the mechanicals needs to do what every other building on our campus has done to allow for future growth in the event it would be necessary because of growth within the community. They've also, based upon preliminary evaluation, are recommending some renovations at the secondary level will likely be necessary to accommodate the enrollment growth, specifically in the areas of technology, science labs, the arts, and related services for students. That's students with special needs, occupational therapy, speech, or physical therapy services that would be required for kids. So those are related service spaces that will look differently in the needs of students based upon increases in enrollment. Eventually, the high school will end up with 400 more students based upon the projected growth to have over 2,000 kids. So we believe, although there will be growth, There's a way, based upon the current level of utilization at the middle school, as well as the current level of utilization at the high school, that we can accommodate that growth of 400 students if we create additional spaces that deal with the specials in a different way, other than classrooms. So we used an example, and I'm just going to use this as an example, that a potential example would be currently at the middle school. We use, the high school does have high school courses currently being taught within the middle school building, because we have classrooms at the middle school that are presently not being used by 7th and 8th graders after the reconfiguration. One of the ideas we put out pedagogically was, you think about the developmental piece of it, instead of having random high school classes placed at the middle school, which is today's environment, it's based upon, here's a teacher that doesn't have a home at the high school that calls it their own classroom. We imagine that differently and have the kids walk across the parking lot to come to the middle school. It becomes targeted towards 9th grade. So could we add more 9th grade classes into the 7th and 8th grade environment developmentally for students, rather than having juniors and seniors at the middle school? So it's just using the building in a different way, but pedagogically could still apply for some students based upon their academic or developmental needs. Lastly, based upon that work, we would reconfigure the school campus again, much like we did when we opened today's intermediate school. We would change the grade level configurations within the buildings to maximize the use of our space to meet the grade level needs in specific grade level bands. We most likely would end up with 2 grade levels in each building after the new school is opened, the ELC is expanded, and the high school renovations are complete. So then we would reconfigure the existing grade levels to basically move students around on the campus with the addition of a new school building. Additionally, based upon the architect's evaluation, we are in the process of having conversations with the city of New Albany to relocate the transportation department from Johnstown Road. Johnstown Road is an everyday challenge for us in this wonderful world of bus transportation. We have great difficulty in the afternoon getting buses out of the bus compound onto Johnstown Road. With the expansion of the bus fleet with future enrollment growth, they will not fit in the existing facility. Remind the Board of Education that there is a lot and a B lot. A lot is where the bus garage office is and the gas tank and the first part of the compound. You go behind that through a roadway, and there's a B lot that's a secondary lot adjacent to that, behind the house that sits next to the bus garage. We do not own B lot. We pay rent to New Albany Company annually for $15,000 to park buses on their lot. So we do not own B lot. It belongs to NACO. We do pay rent for that. We have engaged conversations with the city of New Albany to figure out where would be a parcel that would be, in my description, acceptable, that you could put a bus fleet of 55 plus buses that is not necessarily adjacent to a neighborhood. Neighborhoods would not like buses at 4:30 and 5 o'clock in the morning when we start them during snow or inclement weather. So we have to think strategically about where could we put a bus compound that's not in a major artery of traffic, that's 2-lane road, that's being developed all around it. We would prefer a more secluded location that would give us access to freeways and all roadways throughout the community to maximize our ability to have a productive fleet. So Shore Architectural Firm is working with us on that as well. The architects did discuss the review of the city of New Albany's analysis of this building, the annex. The city of New Albany has been looking for office space throughout greater New Albany. When they passed on this building, they actually rented or leased space on Walton Parkway. They're about to lose the space on Walton Parkway. We went back and said, are you sure you're not interested in this building? Based upon the $40,000 report that they received, because they conducted their own analysis of this building will not meet the needs. And actually it's recommended, based upon the architectural review, that this building should be demolished. So that is actually currently being discussed about the feasibility. So that was a new conversation that's now engaged with us through the architects about the feasibility of demolishing this building. to actually open up the primary school differently. So there's a new front entrance to the primary school that could allow for increased parking, improved campus loops, changes in traffic in the community, all as a result of demolishing this building. With that, however, comes a challenge for us because we do have food services, custodial maintenance and grounds technology, and some related services in the food pantry that are located in this building. The food pantry is already looking for a new home, but that also would require us to start thinking about what's the new home for the operational departments that live within this building just because of space on our school campus. We're now having those conversations internally amongst the administration to determine what potential solutions there could be for our existing operations departments as well as storage. Lastly, I mentioned athletics. The athletic portion of the facility study will start next week. Based upon our conversations with the architects, all of that is scheduled. I don't have any information to share with you related to athletics because the work is not yet underway. I'm confident that there will be recommendations that eventually will come forward related to athletics, just like the academics. But again, this is preliminary discussions. No decisions have been made. Nothing is finalized. This is what I know today. We promised the community when we said we were going to engage in the facility study that we would update people on what we knew when. This is now when, and this is what I know as of today. I think it's exciting. I think it creates great opportunity for the school district. It's going to raise lots and lots of questions. The principals are prepared for tomorrow because word will travel fast on social media that there's some preliminary information that's out, and this is what he said. So we fully anticipate we will have to react to that tomorrow. And I will talk to Mrs. Kalinowski about a letter that we think we probably should send to the community just to say, here's where we are as of today. And again, no decisions, nothing's final. We have not finalized the plan. The board has not acted, and the architects will prepare and submit a formal report by June. So they're moving, which is good. But I want to make sure the board and everyone else has an opportunity to understand what I now know based upon our information we received last week. Any questions or comments from the board?
Michael, they'll come and present a full.
Be a full presentation made when they get through everything that they're doing. But I think from a transparency standpoint, it's important for us to start sharing information as we learn it, knowing that there will be a full board presentation that will take place likely by June.
So you think athletics will be part of that?
Yes. Athletics will be a standalone. There'll be an entire series of recommendations. So I believe it'll be school, meaning academics, transportation center, because we have to have a fleet and transport buses and move kids on our buses. And then there'll be academic recommendations as well.
Michael, is the district facility programming survey that you shared with us, is that to inform the architects better?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a staff survey that's going out on Wednesday this week specifically to talk about how they use their existing spaces to meet, from a pedagogical purpose, to meet the academic development needs of kids, to help inform instructional spaces and what's working or not. And if they had really the magic wand or the blank slate, if I could have changed this space and done it differently, or now that I've lived in this space for 5 years, this is what I love about it, and this is what I hate about it. We're really after that type of information from our faculty and our staff who work directly with kids every day to do this thing called school. So we are conducting a formal survey with staff, and then we will do listening sessions with staff members as well.
Feel free to say we don't have the answer to this question yet, but we do say that this will be on the school campus, the new elementary school. Do you have any ideas where this would be?
So I can tell you the school campus locations that are being assessed, because we have to gather soil samples, will include the varsity baseball, varsity softball, and JV softball fields. So that entire area is a potential plot. The 605 corridor off Cardulis, so next to or adjacent to or on the middle school football field. So we own that plot of land. So they will look at that. They will look at what's adjacent to that at the top of the hill on 605. And then I've requested, and I've reached out to the city, the Parks and Rec Department, and the township through their township administrator and director directors to request that while we're doing these soil samples, we would like to look at property adjacent to the school campus that is not owned by us, but could potentially be a discussion point depending on what the architect's findings are. So I've requested formally through the township and Parks Rec to do soil samples at the same time on property that is not owned by us for that purpose. But it would be contiguous to the school campus. We're not looking to go off the school campus. It would still be contiguous to here.
Thank you. The second question, you mentioned some potential new development and some currently commercially zoned space in Columbus. That's new news to us, correct? That is not baked into the analysis that we've done.
It has been nothing that Cooperative Strategy has ever heard before. This is brand new information to all of us. We did not know this was coming.
Michael, on that topic of Hamilton Road, so they've got it rezoned now so that it can be residential.
I don't know if it's been formally approved, but I've been told it's going to be approved. I don't know when the vote is.
Do we know if we'll get any revenue from the project?
I don't have that information yet. We've asked if it's part of the CRA and the new legislative requirement within the city of Columbus for abatement, but we haven't received all the details. So that's one of the questions we've submitted to try to find out more information.
So at this point, we don't know how many students. Okay.
Now, if we could get the typology, the price points and the same information, if we could get that from the developer, we would probably engage Karen Jackson from Cooperative Strategies to do the like assessment, like she's done with everything else that we've had for future development. So we can have a third-party analysis confirm, because the developer, I'm confident, is going to tell us what he or she believes the number to be, but I would like someone else that's not the developer to tell us that. But I would fully anticipate if you had an option, and the Hamilton Road area is complicated because the parcels, some of them are in New Albany Plain local schools as far as apartment communities, and most of them are not. They're in Columbus City schools. But if you have a choice of a price point that's equal to be in Columbus City schools or New Albany Plain local schools, I think we all know who's going where. They're going to come to us.
So I heard you correctly. You indicate probably 2 grade levels per building. So you'd have like a K1, 2, 3, and
Well, if you have a pre-KK, that's one building. It's currently the ELC. So it could be a 1-2, it could be a 3-4, it could be a 5-6, and then 7 through 12, I think needs to be reimagined a little bit because we have to figure out how to use the space with just renovating the high school instead of adding an addition on for new students. I don't believe we need the classroom space from our analysis and working with Shore and company and looking at the additional 400 students that are projected to be at the high school. I think we can accommodate them when we look at the current usage of the middle school and the current usage of the high school combined and figure out what that potentially can look like. There's still work to be done. That's all hypothetical. It could change tomorrow. So again, no decisions have been made. Please repeat, no decisions have been made. I'm just trying to be transparent about what I know.
Yeah.
I actually think it helps because it'll start community conversation, which I think is exciting.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Thanks for all the work on it.
I mean, it's fun. It's hard, but it's fun in a very different way. But I think it's exciting for our community because the growth is coming.
It is
We're
coming.
going to have growth.
Yeah.
We need to be prepared, which is why we started this work 9 months ago, or 10 months ago, or 11 months ago now with Cooperative Strategies.
I appreciate the update. I think it's really helpful that we're thinking ahead and be able to, instead of piecemeal it together, really thoughtfully align things to do what's best for the students and the faculty to use the spaces in kind of the best, most efficient manner. So I agree that it's interesting, exciting time, but there's a lot of thought that obviously you guys will do to come up with the best proposal, and confident that you guys will come up with a great option for us.
You're going to have options. Good.
Michael, will there be a communication to staff
Yeah.
essentially,
So I'll do a summary tomorrow for staff purposes, but then I'm gonna talk to President Kalinowski. I think we should do some type of a letter home to families, just to give them access to the presentation and access to the video if they would like to watch it, but to summarize in a bulleted format, here's what we know as of now. And again, no decisions have been made. I just think it would be helpful. It starts to tell the story. We need people to start talking about all of this publicly. It will help us. We'll get feedback.
Just in terms of this Hamilton Road development, we are doing everything we possibly can to understand what's coming.
Yes.
But there are, some parcels that, maybe we didn't pick up on this last study. So, we continue to partner with New Albany Company, with the city, and also, with, our legal folks to help us understand what parcels are at risk to the school district. But, there is a huge demand for housing. So, developers are excited to look at our school district, and, it's a time of growth. So we just have to be prepared, and we're doing everything we can.
Any other questions I can answer? Thank you.
All right, now may I have a motion and a second for superintendent's items A and B, please?
second.
Mr. Newmoff and Mr. Wilson, Superintendent Sawyers.
President Kalinowski, members of the Board of Education, letter A for personnel, standard employee action items for resignations, retirements at all within the school district in accordance with terms and conditions of employment. I do want to call your attention to one item on the agenda. He's actually on here twice. First, to resign as the Dean of Students, which is the first requirement. In order to accept the second requirement, a contract offer is being presented this evening for board approval to hire Ryan Gratial, the current Dean of Students in New Albany Middle School, former Dean of Students at New Albany High School, and back to New Albany Middle School in the course of the last 4 years. The assistant principal at New Albany Intermediate School beginning in August. So we had transitioned some staff members around. The vacancy was at the intermediate school. So I'm very pleased this evening to welcome, and he will come to the podium after you vote, Ryan Gratial as the recommended candidate to become the assistant principal at the intermediate school. His background, knowledge, expertise, and experience in the school district over the course of the last 4 years has been very valuable to us. He's learned a lot. He's not the same person he was when he came to us, but he is ready to become the assistant principal at New Albany Intermediate School. He was formerly the New Albany High School boys basketball coach as well, so I know he's got fame and fortune from that in the community, but that's not this role. This is an assistant principal's position at New Albany Intermediate School, which ties back to his teaching. He's licensed at 4 through 9 educator in mathematics and social studies. So this ties to his bread and butter for what he has formally done in his lifetime. So we welcome him into that role. Ryan, after the vote, you can come to the podium. Secondly, for general business this evening, letter B, standard employee action item, or not standard action items in relationship to the senior waiver, the athletic field trips, the non-athletic field trips. I want to call your attention to the summer contract. So we are starting to schedule summer work. It is April, so we need contractors to be booked. So the paving recommendation and the cement recommendations are on tonight's agenda to hire the contractors for the summer work that we anticipate is necessary on the school campus specifically. And then lastly, on number 7 under general business, it's my pleasure this evening to say that you are going to vote on the graduating class of 2024. This is not the official graduation list. These are all the students who are eligible to potentially commence and receive their diploma from New Albany High School. The final graduation list is determined based upon every student successfully completing all the requirements necessary to be conferred their diploma. We have to first deem them eligible through board action, and then we will confer based upon fulfillment of all the obligations. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Graduation is just over a month away.
It is. May is coming. Mayhem is relevant. May is. There's something every night in May.
All right, Ms. Jenkins, please call the roll.
Vice President Newmaw,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. McClellan,
Yes.
Ms. Fuller. Yes. President Kalinowski.
Yes, and the motion carries.
Mr. Grayshall.
Good evening, President Kalinowski, members of the Board of Education, Mr. Sawyers, Ms. Jenkins, district leadership team. I'm very excited, sincerely excited to take on this new leadership opportunity within the New Albany Plain Local School District. I'm very grateful for my experiences as the Dean of Students at New Albany High School, New Albany Middle School, and then obviously serving as the boys basketball coach for 3 years. I'd like to thank the Board of Education, district and building leadership team, staff, students, and community members for supporting me in my development over the past 4 years. I would like to thank my wife and family for their continued love and support. Thank you, Ms. Ballinger and Mr. Emery, for this selecting me to serve as the next assistant principal at New Albany Intermediate. I'm committed to fostering an environment for kindness, dignity, and respect, and meeting the academic and developmental needs of all students. I look forward to the continued work and success of our school district and the continued success at New Albany Intermediate. And as always, go Eagles. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
Now may I have a motion and a second to adjourn to executive session as permitted by section 121.22G4 of the Ohio Revised Code for the purpose of preparing for, conducting, or reviewing collective bargaining strategy.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Wilson and Mr. Newmoff. Ms. Jenkins, please call the roll.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Vice President Newmaw,
Yes.
Ms. Fuller.
Yes.
Mr. McClellan.
Yes.
President Kalinowski.
Yes, and the motion passes. We are adjourned into executive session and we will not take any action in this session. Thank you.